I'm Stumpy Nubs, and this is the Deluxe downdraft table. A downdraft table is usually used for just sanding. You hook your dust collection hose to it and it pulls all the fine dust away from your workpiece. They really cut down on sand boogers, which I think is healthy. This one does a lot more than that, and it all starts with a simple plywood box. I made my box 5 inches deep. If you use a shop vac for your dust collection, you should make yours like 3 inches deep, I think. You're probably wondering what the hose size has to do with how deep your box is. It's because most people are going to put a hole in the back of their box. Mine is in the bottom because it's going to be mounted in a workstation, so the bottom is what's going to be accessible. But most people are going to be using this as a kind of a standalone unit. They just sit it up on their bench, so the bottom won't be accessible, the back will. Anyway, if you use a shop vac for your dust collection, you want your work surface to be as close to the hose as possible, so you make the box only as deep as you need it to be. Does that make any sense? The biggest challenge in any downdraft table design is getting even airflow across the entire work surface. I solved this problem with ramps inside that help channel the air in from the edges. This really makes a huge difference in the overall performance. What really makes this design unique is the top. A couple of years ago, we built a shop cart that had a T-track embedded top I got from Rockler. And since then, I've used that sucker all the time, more than any other work surface in the shop. It's just that handy. So I decided to combine that idea with a downdraft table. Inside the grid of T-track, I bored a bunch of 3/4 inch holes. There's 2 reasons that I chose 3/4 of an inch. First, I find that a downdraft table works better with a few larger holes instead of a billion little ones because there's a lot less resistance for your dust collector to have to overcome. I'll get to the second reason in a minute, but first I need to tell you about mounting the T-track. To embed T-track in 3/4 inch plywood flush with the surface, you have to cut dados 3/8 of an inch deep. That only leaves 3/8 of an inch of material below the T-track for your screws to bite into. It's not nearly enough. The first time you clamp something down tight, it's just going to rip your T-track up. So I designed this table with the edges of the box below the T-track around the perimeter of the top. That way you can use long screws to fasten it down securely. The exception is the track down the center of the top surface, but I find that track to be less of an issue because whenever I'm clamping something down, it's usually in the center of the work surface, which means it's laying on top of the track. So the clamp doesn't pry it up, it's actually pinching itself down. That brings us back to the 3/4 inch holes. That also happens to be the size of a lot of workbench accessories you can buy, like the bench risers for the Rockler bench cookies, or all sorts of other dogs and stops and clamps and things that will fit into 3/4 inch dog holes. In fact, there's a whole variety of these things that will work with this, and it really makes it useful for all sorts of woodworking tasks, whether it's holding something down while you're sanding it or cutting it or routing it or whatever. Combining work holding with dust collection just seems like a no-brainer to me. This thing will drop into a spot in our big table saw workstation. But like I said, you can sit it on a bench in your shop if you prefer. You just have to connect those to the back instead of the bottom. It's really lightweight and it's easy to move around. It's one of those projects that I think you'll wonder how you ever got along without it. So thanks for watching.